Okay. Okay, thank you for joining the session today. We're going to be talking about Dataverse. I'm going to share my screen in a few. Today, we're going to be focusing on business rules and business process flows. And let me just share my screen so that the screen is not blank. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about business rules. And business rules are, according to Microsoft definition, they are server-side logic that is used with Canvas and model-driven apps to set or clear values in one or many columns in a table. So let's say you have an app. It's mostly used with model-driven apps because the model-driven apps is what uses most of the functionality for business rules. For Canvas apps, there's some things that cannot work when it comes to business rules. We're going to go through that. But for model-driven apps, it takes all the functionality and it's able to work as it should. So business rules are things that bring in logic to an app. Let's say you have an app and you want to, let's say you have a contact center app and you want an agent. When an agent asks someone questions, let's say if I say I'm a female, there's some other columns that should appear to ask me more questions so that I can enter data. Business rules will help you to hide columns, to show columns, to set values on the columns, and also to validate data and show error messages. So the ones that apply for Canvas apps and model-driven apps are setting column values. You can do that in both. You can clear column values in both Canvas and model-driven, and you can validate data and show error messages for both. But for model-driven apps, you can show or hide columns, you can enable and disable columns, and you can create business recommendations for model-driven apps. That's not applicable for Canvas apps. So I'm just going to get right into it. For the business rules, you just go to Dataverse and then Tables. And I created a table here called Dataverse Session Textilers. You just click on that table, and that's where you'll be able to see the business rules here. So just to go through these columns is just another word for fields in a table. Relationships are the relationships that the table may have with other tables. Forms are the keys they're used in validation so that they're not duplicates. You can use keys. For forms, this is what you see on the Canvas app. You use forms. Views are the views that you'd want to see. Maybe like this here is a view. It has name and created on. This is a view here. Charts are visual representations of data. Dashboards are visual representations of data that contains chart and views. So we have the business rules here. This is what we were talking about, that these are the logic rules that are used in model-driven apps and Canvas apps. So I'm just going to click on New Business Rule. It is taking a while to load, but basically business rules usually just summarize logic. So there's always an if condition. That's a condition, meaning how do you want this business rule to apply? So you define your condition, you define an action, and you have a scope, which you're going to see right now. It is taking very long to load. So in my opinion, I think business rules work the best when you are using model-driven apps, just mainly because you're able to do more things that you would do as compared to Canvas apps. Here we are. So this is our condition. First thing, best practice is to just name your business rule. Let's see, what do we want this business rule to do? I have a table that has first name, last name, gender, whether you have children, and the number of children. Is just a simple table just for purposes of this demo. So I'm going to call it Dataverse session. And it's always good to also add a description to the business rule just to give an idea of what this business rule does. For now, I'm not sure what it does, so I'm going to add the description later. And here is where you now put in everything that you want your business rule to entail. The condition is, this is basically just an if statement. If you look here, down here, there's the text view. So it means if you put your condition, then what happens? That's the action. So a new condition, and the entity is the Dataverse session textiles because that's the table that we chose. So let's say if female, no, let's say check if gender is female. Okay, entity is, the source is the entity. There's no other entity because that's what we're using. We're using the table. The field is what field do you want to check? What does this condition check? And since the display name is check if gender is female, I'll come to here and put gender if gender equals female. Okay, I hope everyone is understanding. And if you don't understand anything, just stop me and just ask the question. So the business rule is if the gender and the value, there's value and field. Field value applies when you have the field that we have now, like the column that we have now, it just has two values. Field, it's just gender equals gender. It makes no sense, and there's no other field for that. So for us, we want the value is equals to female. Then you have to click on apply. And another thing is that you can add more if statements in this business rule. So I can come here and add if, so we'll check if the gender is female and something else like last name contains, let me put mine, Weche. Then you apply. So the first statement is going to check if the gender is female and the last name contains Weche, what do you do? And you can also choose to put an or statement, meaning either or. If one of them apply, then go ahead and do the action that you want it to do. For now, we are going to use and, then you apply. And after that, you just go back to components to add your action. And these are the actions that are available here. So you can choose to, you can just click on it and drag it next to the condition. So let's say if the gender is female and the last name contains which, what do you want it to do? Maybe we want it to lock a field. We want it to lock the field. Which field do you want it to lock? We want it to lock the field last name or any field that you want. You want it to lock the field. Let's think. First name. Let's lock the field first name. You can either lock or unlock, but since it's already unlocked, the logic here would be to lock it. So if the field was locked, the logic would be to unlock it. Okay, then you click on apply. Then we can save this. When you're saving, there's a validation that is being done, and you can't be able to save a business rule successfully if there are errors in your business rule. The validation will fail and you'll be able to see the errors that are there. And after that, we activate the business rule. The only way that your business rule will be able to work in your table is if you activate it. If you just save it, it won't work, but you have to activate it so that it can actually apply in your table. And there's something else here called the scope. We have different types of scopes. Let's let it just finish loading. But there are different types of scope. We have entity, we have forms. There are different types of forms because when you create a table, it comes with different forms. So you can put it on either all the forms, which is the entity as a whole, or you can use a particular form. You can say this business rule should only apply to maybe form X. And that's the only form that will be able to use the business rule. Okay. It's taking a very long time to load. Are there any questions as we wait for it to load?
No question from my end, Lavender.
Okay. That's fine.
Lavender, one
Yeah.
question. Can I attach business rule to multiple forms? The same business rule?
Can you attach it to multiple forms?
Uh-huh.
Yes. I'm just going to show you how to do that. Let's see, maybe it has actually, oh, there it is, it's here. Let me just activate this again. So if you do go to, I'm not sure why this is not active. It has activated. The reason that, sorry, not the reason, but how to know that it's activated is that now you're able to see deactivate instead of activate, meaning that it's an active business rule. So if you go to your tables, let's go back to the table. Then I go to my form. These are the three forms that I usually what? That usually come with the tables. Once you create a table, these are just the default forms that are usually there. So if I do click on that, sorry, click on edit, we're able to see the form here. This is the information form. So if I do want to attach a business rule, we go to this icon. You can just expand this by clicking on the menu here so that you can see the different menus. And we have business rule, and we are able to use this. We're able to use this business rule for this form. It's already using it mainly because we put it as the scope as the entity. So it's applying for all the forms right now. If we go back to the business rule and we look at the scope, so I have to deactivate it for me to be able to edit it. So if I do click on the scope, there's the entity, which is all forms. There's the all forms, which is the same as the entity, in my opinion. And there's the information, which is the form that we are on here. So if we want it to only apply for the information, you just click on the scoping information and you save it and you activate it. Activate. There it is. So if I go back here, I already see that the business rule is already on this form. But if I go back to this form, edit. Okay, as it's loading, let's just play this form to see how our business rule works. Let me go back to table here. Then we create an app. I'm creating the app so that we can play it and see if our business rule actually works. The other way, Okay, here's our app. If I click on play, click on new, our business rule was if the gender is female and if female, you see it's locked. Did everyone see that? And locked is just another way of saying that it's read only. It can't be edited. Okay.
Yes.
So other things that you can do with the business rule is hide a value, hide a column. Let's say if I say that I have no children, I can decide to hide the column that number of children because there's no need to put it. Or what else can we do? If I have a limit for maybe the age, if I say that this table should only be able to take members that are between 25 and 30, and you put an age that is above 30, add an error message. Let me see here. See this action for show error message. That's what we can use. And for the set field value, let's just go through this real quick. For the set field value, this is used to set a value. Maybe maybe you're a contact center agent. I like using the contact center because I've worked with it for a while. So maybe you're a contact center agent and a particular case is supposed to be assigned to someone. That is very helpful with the set field value. Maybe it's supposed to be assigned to a particular team. If I have what? If I have a question on banking and maybe it's to do with loans, I can assign that to the loans team by setting a field value so that it can be assigned to them. Setting a default value, this is different from the field value because the default value will always be there. The field value will vary. Okay, set business required is if you want a user to if you want a column to always be required. So a user can't proceed or save the record without that particular column. And set visibility is like what I was saying on this. If I click on has children no, then I'll set the visibility of this to be no, meaning that this won't show. The number of children won't show. Okay, are we clear till there?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that is about it to do with the business rules. Does anybody else have any other questions? We're going to be moving on to the business process flows if there are no questions.
None from my end.
Okay, thank you. So for business process flows are they are a visual guide, meaning that on this particular table that we have here, on this table, there would be a guide showing us the steps on what to do next. I work a lot with CRM, and on CRM, if you create, let's say, a lead is someone that may be interested in your product. If you create a lead, there's usually a guide to show you what you need to input so that you can move to the next step. What is required for you to move to the next step, maybe for the lead to convert to the next, which is an opportunity. So that is what a business process flow is. It is a visual guide that is meant to help users to complete a business process by following a predefined stages. So the main difference between the UI for the flow and for the Power Automate is the visual guide. Remember, for Power Automate, you really don't see the processes. They're in the background. But for the business process flow, you'll be able to see the steps that you're supposed to perform to move to complete the whole process. So I am going to I'm going to create a business process flow now, and it is under flows. Let's just go back. If you go to flows, We have cloud flows, desktop flows, and business process flows. And for you to create a new one, you just select new. You give your flow a name. Then you have to choose a table, the table in which this business process flow is against. So I have my table called data first. This is the table. Then you create it. So in business process flows, we have a stage. A stage is I would say the main thing, which is supposed to be the starting point, either the stage or a condition. Here we have the stage here. So for the stage, this is just basically the first stage. What do you want it to entail? Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. We have our stage here and we have our details. So in the stage, what do you want this first step to be? Maybe I want the user to always enter the first name. So I'm going to say personal details. Data field, what field do you want the person to enter? So it's going to be the first name. And the sequence is 1, meaning that it's going to be the first on the step, the first step in short. So I'm going to put it as required, meaning that the user cannot proceed without this being put in. Then you have to click on apply. You can add other steps. If you go back to components, you can just select that and drag it and drop it there. So let's say I want another one is the gender. I want it to be required. So this is 2 because we put the other one as 1. So this is the first one. The personal details is the first one and the gender is the second one in sequence. So you have to put in the first name first, then the gender second. Then you go back to components. We can add different things. So in your business process flow, there's the condition, meaning that this would be like a trigger. The condition must be met for you to be able to proceed with your business process flow. Are we together? Okay, so we are just going to test this to see how it works. There are no errors because it says the validation is successful. You have to activate it for you to be able to use it. I'm going to activate that. So this business process flow should appear at the top of the form. This form. It's taking some time to activate. Oh, there it is. So let's just reload our form. I'm going to have to play it. Let's go back to the forms on. This is our form, so I'm just going to play it so that you can see if the business process flow will appear. Let's put in a record. Here we go. Can you see it? Can everybody see? So it's basically just a guide. If we continued putting on more stages, it would have the different values depending on what we put in our business process flow. So if we click on this, let me just add some data here. Let me put the email to So as you can see, this is what we had put in the business process flow. We just put in personal details is this, and gender is this. So if we do want to finish the steps, because as a business process flow, it's supposed to be a whole process that will lead you to completion of whatever process that you're supposed to complete. So if I click on finish, this means that the process has been completed. Are we together? Are there any questions?
Yes, we are.
Is there any clarification that I need to make? Okay.
Okay, Lavender, please, I have a question. Like you said, we can add more stages if we want to. Is there a limit to the number of stages we can add?
Yes, there is a limit. I am not sure about the limit, but there is a limit. It should be, I think, 10 or 5 stages. I am going to confirm that, and I am going to send it to you to put it on the group. But I know there is a limit. Yeah, there is a limit. Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Okay, I also want to ask, if you are to like automate a business process and some other things have to, so I would ask, do we have to come click the button to go to the next stage before that stage is completed, or there's a way we can use Power Automate to check if those actions or those items are completed to go to the next stage? Do you get my question? I can go by it again.
Yes, please, please go ahead and go.
All right, please show
it.
us the screen, the other screen that has the business process.
This one.
Yes. So if we had multiple stages, you know that after the first stage, you have to like click on a button, just like this finish button, to go to the next stage. Or am I wrong?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So is there a way, does this have to be done manually? Like somebody has to come click that button? Or there's a way Power Automate can check if those details are there and help us click on the button to go to the next stage?
Oh, I don't think there's anything Power Automate cannot do. So I would say that you can create a Power Automate flow to be able to be triggered. Let's say when you modify this part, or when you enter details to the fields, you can create a flow that will be triggered if the condition you want to be met will be met, and then you create an action for the flow. So let's say if this is, give me an example. You want, if I've added my personal details and my gender, the Power Automate flow should run.
So I'm asking this because sometimes we might actually want to do. So I'm trying to understand at what point would introduce business process flow to a solution to automating a business process? Because yes, this can accommodate business rules. This can be broken down into stages. Now, do we have to manually have to come type all this? If yes, then that's fine by me. I just wanted to know if there's a magic Power Automate can perform where we don't have to come, like the user himself doesn't have to come click submit or click finished before the process will be completed.
Okay, I get it now. I get it. I would say you can use your Power Automate flow to check your details, to check if it contains data. But for this to actually be triggered, for this to actually begin, there needs to be a manual process to it. It needs to start from somewhere. So I need to start by creating maybe the record so that I can move to the next stage, yeah? And it's only after I create the record or after I modify the record that I can bring in Power Automate. That is what I would say, to be able to now cater to that.
Thank you very much. I would also want to ask, is there an autosave? Because I think in Business Central, so there's autosave when you're filling some forms and all. So for this, is there an autosave? Or
There
have
is
to
an
come?
autosave. Yeah, no,
Wow,
there is an
nice.
autosave. And
Nice.
it usually appears somewhere down here. This one is already saved, but there is an
Yeah.
autosave. Yeah. And even if you don't save it and you try to leave, it will show that the record hasn't been saved.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Is there any other question? Any clarifications? If there are no other questions, I think that brings us to the end of this particular session. Victoria, I don't know if we are going to also include the Power Automate session in the next one, or is this the last session for the business process flows and business rules?
Okay, so there's another session, but I'm not sure it's centered on business rules.
Okay, because I know
we can do this when we've completed that session.
Yeah.
If there's like extra time, we can take the Power Automate part, but that session is actually next week.
Okay, because I know there's one more we've not done, to be notified when a business process flow is complete.
Oh,
using
okay.
Power Automate.
We can take that in the next class. Thank you very much, Lavender. Thank you to everyone that joined the class.
Yeah, thank you so much to everybody that joined. I hope that you've learned something today. And if you have any questions, just pass them on to Victoria and she can also let me know.
1 minute, Lavender and Victoria, please, before we end the class. So, Lavender, please, I want to get you. So, you want to add Power Automate to every stage. So,